Hey, adults can generally be classified into two categories. There are people who essentially are working all the time because they feel like they have to, either because they see a storm approaching or the storm has already hit their shores. Um, and then there is another group of people who feel as though they don't need to work. Um, so this video is for the former group. Um, yeah, people are threatened with despair. There are good reasons for this. There's not a lot of hope to be found out there. Um, I try to offer hope in my book, but it hasn't reached a lot of eyes yet. And right now, I've got some other stuff I'm dealing with before I can get to revising and marketing that and the other book I have planned. Um, I was watching the Homestead Rescue Intervention show. I watch very little TV, but I watched this and I could really relate to the people who were these homesteaders really trying to live outside of a system they don't trust. And I relate in a lot of ways to them, and I'm working hard um, in the ways that I'm working on the things that I'm working on. Um, and I'm right now, really a one man show. And so I wear a lot of hats, so to speak. And um, I'm fortunate that I'm able to do that. I think few people these days have that ability because living is expensive, and typically, people can benefit from sharing a roof, sharing other expenses, sharing errands. There's a lot of benefits that can be had from having multiple people working together, splitting duties and expenses, etc. Um, but it's a big decision who you're gonna um, try to have fulfill such a role in your household. And right now I've been focused on other stuff. It's something I would like at some point, but it's just not something that I've been focused on because I have so much else to focus on. And um, I think it's going up my list of priorities because, I've even made a list of tasks I could give to someone who wasn't me, that would be tasks that someone coming in could do without a lot of training or what have you. And so that is something I'm going to be looking for. And hopefully over time, I put myself in a financial position where I can employ people. Uh, but again, it's just one step at a time. And right now it's just me. So, um, but for the people who are working, uh, there are reasons for hope, even if it might seem like there aren't. Right now, in my estimation, in America, um, it is pretty. There's a pretty large number of people in that second category. for one reason or another. And those people, a lot of those people are going to be affected by the financial crisis, what's going on with the bond market, the currencies, all of that, to the point that at some point, a lot of people are going to be faced with a crisis where all of a sudden there's a whole lot of work to do, and they haven't done any of it, and um, they're going to have a tough situation. So once that happens, maybe they can join us and we can find things that they can do, so that production overall can increase, because that's what it's all about, you know. Modern economists want to talk about consumption, but you can only consume what you produce, ultimately, you know. For a while, we in America have been able to consume what people have produced overseas, largely in exchange for IOUs, promises. But eventually, people get tired of promises and they demand real value. And that's the point where production should start um, increasing. So, you know, there are things that need to be done legally to free the economy, but part of the productive work that needs to be done is that legal work. So, again, once we got more people working, and working productively and working efficiently, um, which will happen once we get through those first hurdles of getting the freedom in place. Yeah, I heard from someone in the UK who was concerned. You know, there's so many laws. Um, People can't farm anymore. How are people going to survive off the land? Um, and you know, there's this uh, big homesteading movement within libertarianism. A lot of people think this is the way to go, is to try to become as self-sufficient as possible, to protect yourself from the collapse of the grids. And there is a lot of wisdom in that. But you know, for a lot of people, if you're an urban person and you're kind of stuck where you are, and there's a lot of reasons a person can be, um, you know, trying to accumulate assets, physical assets, um, yeah, I recommend vault storage, private vaults. I feel like in America there are still places you can go, um, to store gold. um, Depending on your jurisdiction, uh, different solutions are available. Um, but holding that and being willing to move, I think, in the event of a crisis, being willing to put a bag on your back and put your gold in the bottom of your bag and set out on foot. Um, I think that's a willingness you should have if you're in that kind of situation. Because, yeah, grids aren't going to just go down simultaneously in every location. Even after a collapse, Some things are going to stay on longer than others. Some governments are going to make better decisions than others, as far as getting out of the way to allow the necessary restructuring to happen. Um, and there's going to be different people operating in different areas, that are going to do things to try to keep infrastructure standing in those areas. And money's going to start moving to areas where that's happening. Investment's going to start moving to those areas. And so if you're someone who can do that, who can put a bag on your back, maybe even with your family, if you're in the UK, get your passport, make sure you got it in order. Maybe consider getting other passports, if you can, so that you have that ability to leave. At the very least, maybe move to a different part of the UK in a situation that's doing a little better, um, or being able to take a boat, a flight, some way to get out of the country. Um, you have to be a pretty good swimmer to get to Europe, and I don't think that's the direction you'd want to go anyway, given how Europe's looking. So, um, that's like an alternative recovery plan, but it's a powerful one. And even if you don't have to leave, if you have that vaulted gold, that's still going to have value wherever you're at. So when the time comes and people are bidding on a scarce amount of food that exists, you have real value you can bid. Um, Silver's even better. Silver dimes. And frankly, you might want to look at bronze and cut pro nickel. Have a good night.